All right, all right, all right. We're live. It takes a few minutes for people to jump in. So while they're doing that, let's talk about just today. Thank you guys for being here, Lisa and Ty. Always great to talk to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
love
yeah.
being here.
So this is just, casual conversation, just hanging out, talking sales, talking business reviews, and maybe a little bit of audit. You guys are audit users, and some of the questions I got were about specifically about audit. So I think a lot of folks who listen in are audit users to begin with. So you know, I think that will naturally come up. But the idea was to really get together and talk about sales and business reviews and just what you guys are seeing. And I got some really great questions from the email I sent earlier this week to our list. I asked, for volunteers to come on and guest, and of course you two graciously accepted, so welcome. And but actually, before we go into the questions, I just want to have Lisa. Why don't you go first, and you can introduce yourself, and then Ty, you'll go and introduce yourself as well.
I'm Lisa Nikian-Berwin. I'm president and CEO of Tomorrow's Technology Today. We are in St. Henry, Ohio, which is over on the west side. It's between Toledo, Indianapolis, and Dayton, out there, right between, about 10 minutes from the Indiana line. So we're kind of rural Ohio, but we service across the country. We're very cyber security focused.
Awesome. And Ty.
Based in Culver City, California, which is kind of like the west side of Los Angeles. And we're a managed service provider, been in business 13 years. Also heavy focus on cybersecurity. Been using audit for a while now and love the product, and happy to share anything anybody has questions on.
Cool. And just so a couple of housekeeping things before we begin. If you're listening live, so we are recording this for the Elevating IT podcast, and you can actually find that on the iTunes or Apple podcast network. Make sure to follow our show there if you haven't. We are live doing this, and we've got a bunch of pre-questions that folks had sent in. So I'm gonna chat about these things. I'm gonna ask my own questions, and as well, you are welcome to ask questions live by commenting. Now we're broadcasting on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. I think, if memory serves me correctly, StreamYard, we broadcast off StreamYard, so I don't know that I can see comments from YouTube. So if you make a comment on YouTube, if you're watching YouTube, you may not be able to ask a question, but if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, you should be able to actually post your question in the comments, and we can ask, and we should all be able to see that, but I'll moderate that just in case. So before we get into the questions I received, I just want to ask you guys, just in general, like, how's business? Maybe Ty, why don't you go first?
Business for us has been steady. We are working on changing ways to get leads. We've been getting a lot of leads, but and I'll talk about that a little later about we've been getting some of the wrong kind of fit leads. And so we're kind of working through that, and in the process right now of hiring a marketing assistant to kind of help with the flow of things. So, but yeah, so far, everything's up in terms of the year. Like we're doing good as a business in general. And a lot of that's due to upselling our existing client base, not so much new clientele, but we are picking up things here and there.
Cool.
My leads have been real steady. I have had a dry spell of closing them, though. It just seems like it's lots of interest and changing things up. So we did sign a new client this morning. So I'm excited that I think we're on the turn, right? But doing a lot of upsells to the current clients. We really focus in on standardization and those QBR. We do quarterly business reviews with the clients. So, making sure that everything is standardized and discussing all those risks with them. So those have really, is what's keeping us going, and then hopefully now we're in the role of the new market. So new clients, I guess I want to say.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, congrats on the new client. Always excited to hear that. So awesome. Going to show this question here. This is from Anthony Joseph. He asked a question about where's the data stored for audit. So that's a product specific question. So I'll open this up to you guys to talk because you guys actually use it. I'm the marketing person here at audIT. So I will tell you that, first of all, I'm not sure what data you're referring to. So whatever you put into audIT, we're not a data collection tool, if that's what you mean, and that probably is what you mean. I think I get that question all the time when I go to events: is where does the data come from? audIT's a presentation tool, so you're taking whatever collection, whatever you're collecting, you're translating that within the audit system. But I'd love to hear, how you, Lisa and Ty, would answer that question because you're actually using it every day.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say wherever I want to put the data, because it is, as you mentioned, like it's not necessarily that there's a bunch of proprietary or sensitive information in audit. Usually it's somewhat generic, but I kind of look at the audit reports that I generate, and I will determine how I send that to my client, whether I'm going to send that encrypted or not based on the information that's there. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, there. I don't have anything that's not public facing, basically, and in there, it's all whether do you have depending on what I put into that categories, do they have antivirus that's monitored? Do they have endpoint detection? Do they have MDR? Those pieces of services. So yeah,
cool. All right. Well, I'm going to go to the panel. I'm going to go to the questions that were asked of me. So again, I got a bunch of questions in email, and I took all of the questions, and they ended up being very similar. So, and funny enough here, this was probably the first question that I got. Maybe 8 people asked this question, and I don't know who this is, LinkedIn user. But we'll talk about how are you both attracting prospects, and the question that I got, I kind of said, how are you generating leads and getting appointments? That was a very popular question.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, so lots of different spokes. Honestly, it's taken years to get leads coming in on a regular basis. We keep building that list, and we use a CRM, and we keep nurturing that list. I have a couple interns. They're constantly cleaning and re-cleaning and re-cleaning, to make sure that list is good. And we do direct mail. We do webinars. We do, I'm actually getting back to in person. We're going to do a seminar. So just, the constant invites, the constant touches, the newsletter. I send out I think we're almost at 2,000 that we send our printed newsletter to. So, we've just been developing that list over time, and it's taken years to get to this list. I do a lot with chambers. We're a member of 7 different chambers. So as members of the chambers, many of them will share their member list with you. We scrub and clean that. And then we start nurturing that. We get in touch with them. We talk to them at events, after hours. And then we start marketing to them. We'll throw them on the newsletter list, and then we'll invite them to opt into our weekly security tips. And then we send them a business brief. I find some awesome articles that just are, business related, not necessarily even technology related, and send that out every month. So just lots and lots of different ways. And then hopefully you get one lead from each of them, which brings you into what you need for the month, right?
Let me ask you a quick follow-up before you jump in here. And you may want to answer this too, because I know you do similar stuff. Lisa, you're sending out a ton of newsletters, like 2,000 newsletters a month. That's a printed newsletter. That's a big expense, right? So What I hear a lot when we talk about things like that and mention things is, wow, that's expensive, and that's a lot of work. Is it really worth it? I hear that again and again. So I'd love to see what are your results there.
I get people that say, I'll ask them, you're still getting my newsletter? Are kind of pin into that a little bit. And I always get great feedback that, it's great information. We value it, and I get leads off of it. I mean, there are people that will, maybe they won't directly fill in. I'll have something for a form fill on there. I don't get many form fills from there, but I'll get something relating back to it. I just talking with a client, with a prospect that I've been mailing their newsletter for 8 years. They're now becoming ISO certified, and guess who? The only tech company that they're going to call, that they're talking to, it's us, because we've been mailing to them for this long. They're a little tool and die shop, and now they finally need, they need the cybersecurity.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Ty, to cut you off again. Just as a marketing tip, like as a marketing professional, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, marketing, and I can tell you, most people concentrate on the top and the bottom. They concentrate on how do I attract some new attention, and then they go from thing to thing to thing. And the real power of it is in the middle, that nurturing phase. And you nailed it. Like, it may take years to nurture somebody to actually become a client, but it works. And if you keep doing that stuff over time, it starts to really compound. So that middle tier, we have to attract new eyeballs, but we have to nurture people through. They're not just going to find us and go and buy that same day. You have to nurture.
And that's the reason you can't stop marketing. Even if you've got operations flooded and they can't take no more, you can't stop marketing. Right. Because as soon as you stop marketing, 2 years down the road or a year down the road, that's when you're going to have the repercussion of that. So
awesome. Ty, sorry I kept delaying you there.
No, it's fine. Very similar to what Lisa said. I mean, we basically like throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, and you rotate it out and figure out what's working, what's not working with marketing, but you never stop. You just keep going. So, as she mentioned, like we do the same thing. We do direct mail. We do have a speaking engagement with our local Chamber of Commerce coming up for a security event, cybersecurity featured event, going to be in September. We do LinkedIn, we do Facebook, we do a lot of stuff with SEO, and this is kind of where I'm at, because I probably spent the last year or so really optimizing SEO, maybe even longer than that. And we're getting a lot of leads organically from Google, a lot of people calling. But what we're finding with those leads is they tend to be a little smaller, like break fix, or maybe not managed services where we're targeting as much. So that's why right now we're transitioning into doing more speaking engagements and more in-person events that are starting to open up. So I just joined, like, there's a referrals network around here of business to business individuals, and so I'm going to join that chapter as well. And I think it's all important and all good to keep doing. And again, measuring is probably the most important factor to figure out what's working for you and what's not. Because once you find that thing that works, then you just keep pouring into that.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah, and I know I talking to you, Ty. I mean, I talk to you all the time, and I know you do a ton of that. What we were talking about, you're going out finding new, but you're continually hitting and following up with those people. And that's a real, that's my biggest takeaway from what you guys both shared is that where a lot of people, where I see a lot of people falling down, is just not nurturing those leads, not continually having touch points.
Yeah, and patience too. Like what Lisa said earlier with the direct mail thing. Like I can remember after I did a campaign, I think it was 9 months or 10 months later, I got a call from somebody who still had the mailer on their desk, and then we ended up setting up a sales call. So it's, just having patience and trusting in the process, and,
Awesome.
and dripping afterwards, sending them, as she said, we do the security tips as well. And we have a farm list that we farm out to.
Cool. Awesome. I'm going to bring back Anthony's question here. He originally asked the question of where does the data stored for audit. So now I think he was asking more about his data, his personal stuff that he's putting into audit. So all that stuff, if you're an audit user, your account is your account. It's completely separate. It's like if you had a DocuSign account, for example. You can't see what other people, put in their DocuSign account. So it's completely secure, protected. We're serving MSPs, so we've got to be held to a higher standard, right? We've got all of the technical things in place to protect your personal data. So let's go to the next question that I got. This was an interesting one, and a few people asked this in a few different ways. What are you doing to collect info in your assessments? One person said, I've been getting more and more pushback on some tools I use. He does a pen test, but the last few businesses that he did the pen test for, or came in to do a pen test, wanted to do the pen test, they wouldn't let him, or they pushed back on him. They're wondering if you do these things where you get into the network, do you have a way to calm prospects down that you can share if you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I don't go that far. For me, I mean, everybody has their own way and process of doing things. But for me, like, I don't want to install anything on a network, and I feel I don't have to with audit. I can literally go into an environment. I can look at 3 computers. I can go look at their server closet. I can walk around. I can talk to the people, and I get a really good sense of where their security's at, what they have, what they don't have. I can run a dark web scan ahead of time. There's a lot of things you can do that you don't need to install an agent, or you don't need to be invasive with them. And you also don't open yourself up to the liability of that, because at that point, you don't have a contract or an agreement with them. So, I never wanted to do that, because I don't want to be on the hook of something getting installed and we don't even have a solid relationship yet. So, that's my take on it. And I just gather all that information and stick it in the audit. And, and it's usually enough, even just being general like that. And Mike knows I used to actually just, for a long time, I was just selling off the audit on a Zoom call, and I would just literally ask the questions to the owner or the IT person who is currently there, or whatever the case may be. And I would just jot down the notes as we were on the call. And at the very end of the call, I'd go over the audit and present it to them all in one call. I don't do that as much anymore, but it's very possible with using audit as a solution.
Cool. Yeah, Lisa.
I do a little bit. I don't install anything. I do send a link so that we can see possibly what a hacker could see. So we go from the idea that anybody in your company can get an email, be phished, right? They click on a link. What exactly can the hacker see in your network, and how can they move in order to what kind of risks do you have? So I do that, but everything else is manually. Usually if it's a bigger client, if it's a bigger prospect, I'll have my engineer hook up with either their IT person or whoever logs into the server kind of thing, and he'll do a screen share with them. And he kind of checks over some things for me, kind of gives me a good feel for that. And then just the discussions at the discovery appointment, just talking through things with them, and go through the fact finder and start filling in the blocks and kind of just fill it out from there.
Cool. And just when Lisa mentioned the fact finder, that's a tool inside of audit that our users can print off, goes along with the way the audit's going to be laid out, and it's just basically for you to kind of walk through your technical assessment and answer the questions you need answered. Let's see, the next question. This was a good one. I love this question, and it got asked a few times. It's our 3rd most popular question. Been talking about this a little bit, about business reviews, because a lot of our users use audit, as they should, for business reviews. This user said, and this person, not a user, said, my customers hate doing reviews with me. Half of them tell me no. The others will cancel and keep putting me off. What do you do that could help me out? And I get this from a lot of people. People say they don't do business reviews because their clients don't want to meet with them, or they do business reviews and then their clients end up not wanting to do more in the future. I have my own special answer, but I figure I'll let you guys go first.
So we don't have that problem. If you provide them value and they know that it's a good meeting, it's not just a chit chat session, that you're bringing them something and bringing them great information. When you bring them that, they can see the green, yellow, red, and oh, why did that turn yellow this time, kind of thing. So when they know that they're getting value, we never have any pushback. I don't have any issues with that.
Yeah, we did for a while have problems with that, and the way we solved it is with automation. So we set up with our CRM, we set up an automation to be able to basically send these things out on a recurring basis. And if the client doesn't schedule after being nagged for several times, then it just goes back in the queue, and then the next quarter that comes up or whatever schedule they're on, because we do quarterly, we do biannually, and we do annually depending on the size of the client. So that has eliminated the need of all the but I'd also kind of throw that back at you if clients, if the clients hate doing the reviews or they don't see the value in what you're doing, you might want to relook at how you're presenting during that process, because if you're being too salesy and you're not highlighting the higher, like the VCIO kind of mentality where you're talking about business risk and you're talking about the protections that should be in place and the revenue or loss of revenue that could happen without these things there, or you name it. Like maybe you're focused a little too focused on the technical or some of the other aspects that make the client not feel as like this has value to them.
Yeah. Oh, Lisa, you gonna say?
I was just going to say, yeah, you have to, don't make it technical. Don't bring them a stack of reports. In my opinion, they're business owners. They're hired you to take care of that. Stay high level, give them strategy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk about this a little bit myself, and invite you guys to comment on this to make sure that I'm on. You can push back on this if you see something different. But a lot of folks who come to us, and we always coach people to use audit for business reviews. They come to us because it's a sales presentation system, and a couple of the issues I get is well, my clients don't want to do business reviews, or they think I'm always coming in to sell them. They're coming in with technical reports, but their clients feel like it's a sales presentation. And then they say, well, audit's a sales presentation tool. Why would I use audit? They're going to think even more I'm trying to sell them. But the feedback that I get, and I'd love to hear your feedback, that from audit user again and again and again, is now that I'm using audit, it doesn't feel like it's a sales presentation, even though it's a sales presentation tool. That's an interesting dynamic. And I don't know if you agree with that, or can speak to that. Lisa, you're nodding, so I'll whichever one of you guys wants to go first.
I would just 100% agree with what you said. It doesn't feel salesy, especially if the client sees the value. You have a client who, sometimes you have to take a hard look at it, and you have to say no to some clients. You have to say this is not the right fit, because they, no matter how many ways I spin it, they're not going to see the value in what we're doing and what we're offering here. But I think I totally agree with you and agree with Lisa. Like, keep it non-salesy, non-technical, very high-level focused, and they should see the value. Any small business should be able to see the value in that, and if they don't, then maybe they're not the right fit.
And come in with your heart. If you come in there with your true, real reason of, you can't go in there to sell. You have to go in there and educate them on protection, why there's the risk, what you're saving your tax. When there's problems that are constantly happening, they're nagging you and they're nagging us, right? So, getting that cleaned up, it makes everybody happy. So go in with your heart, really, really do the presentation from what you feel. And you can't fake it. They see that. So you've got to truly believe in what you have.
Love it. Anthony's like asking all these questions. I appreciate that. I love when people come on live to ask questions. That's like when I sent out the email, I got a ton of questions back, which is great. I appreciate that, but always very much appreciate people kind of jumping in and being part of the conversation. So Anthony, you're awesome. And I'll let you guys answer this question here. I'll just read it so the folks listening later on the podcast can hear it. Anthony's asking to Ty and Lisa, From your experience, do you use audit more for existing customers, or have you had success with prospects as well?
We use it for both, and very much evenly. I have a VCIO. She does all of the meetings with the clients, and that's the tool she used. She loves it. She's not technical at all, so it works perfect. So she works with a technical alignment manager. He gives her the issues. She knows how to go in and check things. So it really frames up her presentation and really helps keep her on track. And then I use it for all the prospecting calls.
Awesome. And I'll just ask you, Lisa, real quick. Sorry to keep cutting you off, Ty. I'm sorry about that, buddy. Obviously, I'd love to hear more about like the results that you're getting from that. Are you seeing what you want to see out of using audit for those?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. And we're now just looping back around our full year of really focused in on this. And so she'll come to me and she's like, everything's really green already, and I'm like, this is awesome because all of our things are working, they're coming together. So, it's exciting to see the fruitions of all your hard work.
Love it.
Yeah, so we landed our largest client to date using audit over Zoom without ever going on site, just showing them the value of what we can bring to the table. So yes, for definitely for new prospective clients. But on the other flip side, I mean, if I added up how much monthly recurring revenue we've increased with our existing client base, I'd imagine right now it's going to be in the thousands of dollars because I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but I just know on a regular basis, I do these reviews and we get done. And at the end, I always ask for additional business or additional services and what they want to do, how they want to proceed. And most of the time, the client says, yes, let's proceed with that solution you talked about. So if I add up all these different things over the last year or two, I'm sure it equates to a couple $1,000s a month, which is very meaningful.
And I'll put a plug in, little audit plug for just by doing that, Ty. If you're saying you've generated thousands of dollars in revenue per month, you're more than paying for your subscription of audit. That's what I tell people all the time. We call it ridiculous ROI with audit. It's like you're paying this small monthly fee and you go out and do a few business reviews, land a client, and you've literally paid for your subscription.
And I think that the new is that what it's called?
The sales white space.
White space. I think that's really going to help us be able to put numbers around that, and know, being able to track it better. We tried to do it by a spreadsheet, but with the changes of users and that kind of thing, it's tougher to do. Where I love the idea that we're going to see it right there.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're digging into that. That's a brand new feature as we're recording this podcast. We just released it this last month, and we did a webinar training on it. We're going to actually do a webinar training next week, or 2 weeks. So keep your eyes on your email for that coming up. It's a really cool. Frank, our founder, has been using it in his MSP for years, and he's it's all done through a spreadsheet, but it equates to a ton more revenue than he would have made without it. So it's a way to kind of visualize where your opportunities are and keep things organized. And it's just it's exciting for me because we've got all these new features kind of coming, and they're starting to hit, and it's really exciting to watch this system that I've been with since day one almost to start to really grow and mature and take off, and the feedback we're getting is great, so appreciate it. Question here, let's see, we've got 2 more questions. So just started using audit for sales, have my first presentation next week. Can you give me some steps or your steps for putting the audit together? Do you just do a base, or do you also do a proposed plan? Do you also do a separate proposal for audit, or with the audit, or without the audit?
Ty, you want to go first?
Ty, you're muted. You're on mute. I have a T-shirt that says "You're on mute" from the old.
Click
days.
fail. So we have we've changed this over time, but we're now in now the way we do it is we do the comparison audit. So we do we do the baseline assessment, and then we take that and we do our proposed plan on top of that, and then we show the gap or the difference between what they're currently paying, versus what they would be paying with us, and we use the financials that are built into audit to kind of show that their existing IT firm is they're either paying too much for them, or they're paying too little and they're not getting enough, or maybe in some rare cases maybe they're doing a good job for them, and they're actually about the same price or whatnot, and that does happen too. But I think that's a very powerful tool, and I think the gap selling approach is a really good way to do that and to show them the value of your services.
Yeah, very much. I use the baseline, and then I usually have plan A and plan B, and each of those are, then the proposals on top of that. I use the financials in there. I do not give them a detailed quote at that time. Frank gave us this advice, a long time ago, and that's been great advice. It's just, it's going to be X dollars, and that includes, your services. What does it include? How many users? And we can hone in on all the details. Let's here's my setup fee. Let's get started, kind of thing. And then I present that, and then along with the letter of intent, here's plan A, here's plan B. Which one do you want? Initial it, and let's get started.
Sorry, didn't mean to speak over you. We do the exact same thing as Lisa, where you put the dollar amount at the end, but it's all inclusive. It's not. There's no breakdown of it, and that's then it's a lot harder for somebody to just shop you around.
Cool. Last question that was emailed is, how deep do you go? And I think you guys covered this a little bit, but just to be fair to this person here, a couple of people actually asked this in a different way. How deep do you go with technical info in the business review? I serve a lot of attorneys and medical practices. They all get a little antsy when I go over things like tickets and warranties. I use audit and sales, thinking of having my VCIO use in business reviews.
We don't dig technical. That's not. They want us to take care of the technology, so we don't go technical at all with that.
Same thing. I mean, I'm trying to think of what's the most technical we get, but I mean, it's probably like, aging workstations, and that's not even really technical. Stale backups, things that are definitely critical or affect would greatly affect the business, but none of that's really super technical. Yeah, it's all very high level.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as person who works for audit and sells audit, your clients don't want the technical stuff. Nobody wants technical details. I don't care what you're selling. It just so happens that MSPs are in the super technical field, so the technical info is even more technical. But this is something in every business, and I think as humans, we're wired to want to kind of share our knowledge with other people. It's just a human trait. But they just want to know, the person on the other side of the desk wants to know, do you understand my problem? Do you understand how it's affecting my business? And can you impact my business? Can you fix this problem, and that will impact my business and help me grow? And that's all they want to know. That's why audit exists. So, use it in business reviews, definitely, big time. Let's see, and we'll just take a last question here before we wrap up. Anthony, our star contributor today, on the comments. Thank you again, Anthony. Alley-oop question. You only present audit assessments to the decision makers, correct?
Ideally, yes. You want to do it. You want to get the buy-in of the person who has the decision, as opposed to someone else. I mean, there have been situations where we just couldn't get with that person, and depending on the opportunity, it still may be worth it for you to present that to somebody who's lower on the totem pole. if you think that they have the ability to convey that information correctly, and and there's still a potential to do business, but I would say 80-90% of the time it's with the decision maker.
Yeah, that's part of my questions whenever we set up that report of findings. If who else helps in making this decision, and if they're not available, then I don't know any CEO that isn't going to want to know something about technology. I really need them there, and if they push back, that's where I decide. Does it really make sense, or do I just want to? Is it worth my time to lob this ball across the net, right? Because the chances of it being a hit is probably only about 20%, because they can't sell my services like I can. They're not passionate about my services. So it just depends on, is it worth my time? How far do I have to drive? What's the chances that 20% is really going to work?
Right. Cool. And I think that this was great advice, great stuff. I'm going to add a story that Frank shares. Frank would share if he was here, because it's happened to him a couple of times where he's had somebody. He's serving now bigger clients than he did, and I think everybody does that, right? You start out as a business, and you're maybe charging a couple $100 a month, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're charging a couple thousand a month, and then I've seen Frank go from that $2,000 mark to where he's charging $20,000 or more per month MRR. Those are bigger companies, so sometimes there's a bunch of decision makers in the room, and there's a bunch of people who still need to go present that to the top. The top's never going to come down and be there no matter what. And he's had several situations where he's just presented it, and then he finds out that they were able to present that to the CEO or to whoever was signing off on that because of audIT, because of how he was presenting it, because it's so simple and the instructions are in there on how to read the report, that the person who was in the room with you, who wasn't the decision maker, can go and present it effectively to the decision maker. And he's done that. He's had that happen to him a couple times where he's closed the deal because of that. So good stuff, everybody. This was awesome. Thank you, Lisa and Ty, for coming. Any last words before we wrap up for today?
Stop being technical.
Great words of wisdom.
Yeah. Get rid of the head trash. It's not,
Yeah.
If you can present, stay out of the weeds and present them education, help them understand their risk. And that's exactly what this is all about. Great tool.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. Can't thank you enough for being here and sharing what you're doing in your MSP. I think this is incredibly valuable. I can preach at people all day long about audit and about sales in general, but when they hear it from their, folks who are actual MSPs, I think that there's really a huge amount of value to that. So I thank you guys for taking time out of your busy day to come and share with me. And thanks everybody for listening and watching live. And until we meet again, keep on elevating IT.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mike.
the opportunity. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. See ya.